Today we are taking a look back at the Sony Xperia 1 Mark II from 2020. How good is it in 2023? The build of the Xperia 1 Mark II still feels really nice and I love how it looks. It has a tall 21:9 aspect ratio, which is great for watching content. When you scroll through apps you will see more content on the top and the bottom. However, when you are watching 16:9 videos, there might be some big bezels on the left and right. However, for me that isn't a big issue. The phone feels really well built. It has Gorilla Glass 6 on the front and the back. That means that you need to be careful with the phone, because if you drop it you might break it. So that's why I prefer plastic bags. But it does look very nice in my opinion. And compared to the older Xperia 1, the sides are now flat, which looks much better in my opinion. And it also has a camera shutter button, which is amazing. And you can half press to focus, fully press to take a picture. And the camera bump on this thing isn't that big. It also has a USB-C port and a headphone jack, which is something that I really like. A lot of phones these days don't have a headphone jack. This one does have it, and it also has micro SD card expansion, so if you want more storage you can easily put a micro SD card in there. And it also has a LED notification light. Those are features that you don't see on a lot of phones these days, but luckily this one still has it. The battery life of the Xperia 1 Mark II isn't that amazing in my opinion. I can get through a day if I don't use it a lot. However, when I use it a lot I can definitely notice that I have to charge it through the day. But maybe that's just my model and maybe it's being used a lot. It does have a large 4000 mAh battery and it does also support wireless charging, which is nice. The display is a 4K 60Hz screen and it can go pretty bright. In my opinion it's bright enough. However, if it is very sunny outside then you might not be able to see the screen that well. But in most cases it's fine, and with brightness it is brighter than my Pixel 3 display. And I think the colors look really nice and the display looks good. And I don't have any issues with it. But because the resolution is so high, that means that it might drain the battery a bit quicker. I feel like most people don't need a 4K screen on a small phone. However, there might be a few people who really like it. For the screen it also doesn't have a cutout for the selfie camera, so it is a nice symmetrical design, and that is something that I also appreciate. And I prefer this design over having a notch or a small cutout at the top for the camera. I would rather have a little bit more bezel, but without a camera cutout. For the speakers it has dual speakers. The speaker sounds pretty good in my opinion. They aren't the best, but definitely not terrible either. Much better than something like my Pixel 5. And I really like that you can hear the stereo separation, so when something is on the left or on the right you can also hear it through the speakers. And the fingerprint sensor on the side is in my opinion one of the downsides of this phone. Maybe it's just my model, but unlocking it doesn't work that fast and it doesn't always work. I had a Surface Duo which also had a side mounted fingerprint sensor and that one always worked fine. But this one isn't that accurate. Sometimes you have to press the fingerprint sensor 1 or 2 times just for it to unlock. So that can be kind of annoying, and the fingerprint sensor sounds like a small feature, but in my opinion it's a pretty big one, because you want to unlock your phone as fast as possible. The camera on this phone is one of the big selling points in my opinion. It is a pretty great camera, and there are also a lot of camera apps that you can choose between, so that's nice. You have the normal camera app, and it's a pretty basic camera app, but still a nice one in my opinion. It has most of the features that you expect on a camera app. However, it doesn't have a time-lapse feature, which is a bit disappointing. And the slow motion only works in HD instead of the 4K slow motion that you can get in the other apps. Then you have the Photo Pro app, which is designed to take photos. You have a lot of manual controls, so you can adjust your shutter speed and it kind of looks like an alpha camera. And then you also have the Cinema Pro app, which kind of feels like the Sony Venice. However, I'm not a big fan of it. It forces you to shoot in 21:9 aspect ratio and the H.265 format instead of H.264. And it automatically turns on HLG. There are no histograms, and once you hit the record button you can't change your exposure, so your exposure is always fixed. However, one of the nice things that it does have is the 4K 120 FPS, and it also has some nice color modes. This Xperia officially doesn't have the Video Pro app. That is on the newer Xperias. However, you can install an APK and then it will work on the phone. And I think that is a really nice feature, because then you can shoot in 4K 120 FPS on the main camera without having the 21:9 crop. What I do feel like is that the photos and videos are a bit oversharpened sometimes. So I'm not a big fan of that. I think in the photos it looks nice, but in the videos it's a bit too much. sometimes the videos have a little bit too much of contrast in them. However, there is another app that solves this, and that one is amazing in my opinion. It doesn't look that great and it costs 18 euros, which is a lot in my opinion for a smartphone app. It is called MC Pro 24 FPS. And it gives you a lot of manual settings, so you can turn on or off the digital sharpening, and you can also adjust the bitrate, the resolutions, frame rates, everything. And I am a big fan of that app, and it has almost all the features that you need. It has a triple 12 megapixel setup, however the low light of the camera isn't even that good in my opinion, which is kinda weird because the sensor of the camera is pretty big, but I think it's probably because they don't have very good software optimization. So now let's talk about the software. This phone came originally with Android 10 and it got an upgrade to Android 12. However, update support has stopped, which is very disappointing. No security updates, no more Android updates, that's fine in my opinion. However, also no security updates, which isn't that great. However, you can still use the phone and it works fine, and it is very stable in my opinion. It doesn't crash or lag or have any issues. It works smoothly and it might not have a 90 or 120 Hz panel, but it looks nice. And it is close to stock Android, and I think that the design looks very nice. It also has a one-handed mode, which I really like. And the speed of the phone is very fast. When you open apps and stuff, it just works smoothly, and not every phone has that, but this one does have it, which is great in my opinion. But I just wish it got more security updates. And it has a Snapdragon 865 with 8 or 12 gigabytes of RAM, so the specs are great. However, keep in mind that I don't game on my phone, so I can't really talk about how fast it is with gaming. But for normal apps, for example YouTube and stuff, it works great. And you can find them for around 200 euros used. And in my opinion, that's a pretty good price for a phone that still feels fast and still works nice with a good camera and the Sony experience. You get a nice shutter button, you get a headphone jack, you will get a notification LED, you will get expandable storage, a triple camera setup, so wide, normal and a telephoto, a nice screen, water and dust resistance, 4K 120 FPS slow motion, and it still looks nice in my opinion. Of course, the phone isn't perfect, the update support has stopped, so you won't get any security updates, so that's a bit disappointing. And also, the battery life in my opinion isn't that great. The fingerprint sensor is also kinda slow. But other than that, this is still a nice phone in my opinion. What do you think of this phone? Do you have one or are you planning on buying one? Let me know in the comments down below, and thank you so much for watching.